Um, what's keeping you, the last question I have for you before I turn to Diane, and we'll ask her some questions about about vocational rehabilitation services. What's the barrier or barriers that's keeping you from returning to work?
Beyond, you know, being able to move around, you know, at a regular pace, but the body gets tired, and also memory is not as quick like before. You have to, before I could do, you know, several things at one time. Now I only can concentrate on one thing at a time.
That's a good point. And Greg, what's the barrier or barriers that's keeping you from returning to work?
Well, I guess what I went to school for, I changed my career goal. So I don't want to work in office. I want to be a physical therapist assistant.
Okay, so you went previous to your brain injury, you were doing service work or were a waiter.
Yeah.
And that requires a lot of quick thinking and
Yes.
adjusting and being flexible.
Yes.
and responding.
It's real physical.
You're
Yeah.
right. Very physical.
And stressful.
Yeah. And then you thought you'd try office work, but that didn't seem to be the right choice for
Yeah.
you. And so now you want to be a physical therapy assistant?
Yes.
All right. Okay. You guys did a great job at answering
Thank you.
questions. I appreciate
Thank you.
that. Now we're going to talk to Diane a little bit about vocational rehabilitation.
Okay.
And what has been your experience regarding people with traumatic brain injury transitioning to work after their injury?
It depends on how serious the injury was, how long somebody was unconscious, or their time for recovery matters, because the more severe the injury, the longer the time to recover. And we can see someone in our offices if they're still in recovery, okay, because our counselors should be helping with the adjustment to disability. But first you cry a little.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
part of beginning to understand that there's a difference between who I used to be and who I am now. So there's that adjustment to disability. Motivation, wanting to do something meaningful is really important. It's if the individual doesn't have goals, doesn't have a drive, nobody can do it for them.
That's a really good point.
So you two are motivated. I think it matters that someone pre-injury did work and they have that memory of it, and it was a lifestyle which you would like to go back to. Yeah. So that's part of what I've seen. Return to work depends on whether you had a work life before, and then you have a context to which you can relate and have some memory of it. The slides you talked about, reconciling who you were and who you are now. You folks went through that, yeah? You agreed with that?
Yeah.
And you show a lot of self-insight, and you look at yourself, and it's hard, yeah? Because you're sad about how I used to be, and you know that you're different.
Yeah.
But in spite of that,
I think that's one of the barriers too, because after you have a brain injury, you remember what you used to do, and now sometimes it's difficult to do the same thing.
Yes.
Yes.
You have to adjust a different way to do it.
and before you were injured, if you didn't have really a reason to be creative or weren't creative, you would be creative now, yeah? Because of how your capabilities are different. So when your right hand didn't work,
Mhm.
like you remembered it to, so now you're getting your left hand to do more?
Right. But I'm still, trying to use the right hand because when I looked at research on
Mm-hmm.
about having a stroke,
Mm-hmm.
uh, the recovery is faster if you do still tell your brain to remember the side that got affected.
Yeah. It's still part of your body.
Right.
And you're still going to try to use it because
Right.
if you let it atrophy, it will. And it'll just
Go down.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
stop working for you.
traumatic brain injury is something that's so individualized too.
It
That's
is.
a challenge for.
It is. So that's why it's hard to say generally. I mean, well, I was talking in generalities, but for everyone's situation, everyone is an individual and will approach it differently, will recover differently. The support system that someone had before, and sounds like you folks had good support systems.
Yes.
Yes.
Because if you were rather a loner, not you, but okay, if someone
If you
was rather
were-
someone was rather a loner, not really connected, and
Makes it much more difficult, doesn't it?
Yes,
Yes.
because although I said a few minutes earlier, the person's motivation is the strongest factor. We get gasoline from the people around us too.
Yes.
Yeah, and our loved ones will help us and
Yeah.
encourage us and help us to wake up in the morning.
And I
You
think
know?
that's another thing to realize that after a brain injury, something that you used to be able to do quickly,
Mhm.
it takes time. So even recovery,
Mhm.
it's not gonna happen in, one day or 1 month. You're talking about maybe 2 years, and that's where the frustration comes in. Sometimes you don't see improvement, and then all of a sudden you have the improvement.
Right.
Mhm.
How long has it been since your injury, Val?
Mine, this is going on 6 years.
Okay, and you haven't returned to work during that time?
No, the first 3 years was more just having to learn to stand up, and
Mhm.
even speech was
Mhm.
very difficult at
Mhm.
first. And the thing that I remember in the hospital is I was trying to explain things, but people weren't able to understand
Mm.
what I was
Mhm.
saying.
Mhm.
Good point. And Greg, how long has it been since your injury?
4 years now.
Okay. And you haven't been working in the meantime? Yeah. And
I was
well,
thinking, Val, if you weren't patient before, you will learn patience now, yeah? Because
Right.
that's the only way you can get from day to day and how
Mhm.
you can work on what you need to work on.
Well, for me, I was fortunate because I had a medical background.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the things I knew, and I had to teach the patients
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
So I had to apply it to myself. It's
Mhm.
just communicating to other people what I'm trying to do at that time when speech wasn't
You sound
so
as though
easy.
your memory is pretty intact. Yeah? Is
Uh,
it?
Yes, the memory is, getting faster
Mhm.
as far as remembering more things,
Mm.
so,
so practicing is important.
yeah.
Yeah, so being active, doing things. You both are active in volunteering with the Hooikaika Project.
Yes.
You're also involved in doing other socialization things.
Yes.
You both do some type of exercise. I know
Yes.
that. That's a
And
good
for
point.
me, staying home, I'm able to do scrapbook crafting,
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
that keeps me busy because when you're by yourself or when you don't have people to talk to, it's easy to go into depression.
That's a
you know,
good point,
because
too.
Yeah.
Then you're thinking about what you cannot
Yeah.
do
I'm-
instead of what you can do.
Good point.
Mhm.
I'm going to go back to Diane for a second. I want to ask about, it's important to use a person-centered plan approach with people with traumatic brain injury, and Voc Rehab's doing that anyway.
Of course.
And what kinds of services can people get from vocational rehabilitation?
Val mentioned the computer training. We want to build skills, have people, provide the means for people to acquire skills so that they can become eventually vocational independent, or more so than they would have been without us. We can provide rehabilitation technology. I think maybe it can get you that, the naturally
That-
speaking.
They
Yes.
did.
Yeah.
Yeah, so those kinds of assistive devices
Mhm.
are part of what we do, and that can make a world of difference to someone who has reduced function,
Right.
different function.
On-the-job training was mentioned too in the,
Yes,
the article
that's-
that I was reading.
That's been a helpful tool, and employers are receptive if we have a qualified candidate. Okay, need to be mindful of business. But someone can be on site, being taught the job, learning the job, and earning a wage at the same time. So we think of it as a win-win. The employer has an employee, and the employee is learning the task. Yeah, and that's one of the tools we use. The job-related services, I guess, would come in handy. If someone is having trouble finding work
Mm-hmm.
on their own,
Mm-hmm.
we can provide assistance to help look for work. If someone is having difficulty maintaining a job because maybe I don't remember my job duties like like I'm supposed to, not in the proper sequence, and
Mhm.
I forget, and I need repetition, I could have a job coach with me to help
Mhm.
me with that.
Going back
Several
to
weeks.
school, education for some people, if it's appropriate.
Sure. Education is an advantage in this world, and
That's
we
a good.
support that.
Yeah.
Appropriate education.
How long does vocational rehabilitation serve someone?
It depends. Yeah, it depends on the needs of the individual. If someone is, say in this case, you acquired your injury, if we meet someone right after injury, then we're working with that individual as they're recovering and as they're adjusting
Mhm.
and learning how to live in their new self. And that can, I don't know how long that takes. It
Yeah.
depends.
For some people, vocational rehabilitation can be short, and for other people, it can be a longer journey,
Yes.
many years.
Many years. Yeah, I don't want to give the impression that we're a revolving door and you're in and out in a couple months, because that's rarely the case.
Yeah.
We go for years. We
Okay.
can do years.
You guys have been a great panel to talk about this. We're just about done. So I want to say thank you to our audience, and I want to let them know that if they have questions, you're welcome to call. And I think we have a slide about this. You're welcome to call our office and ask us questions, or if you're interested in being a peer mentor, if you've had a brain injury or you'd like to volunteer with our project, you can contact us. Our phone is area code 808-592-5907. You can call toll-free from neighbor islands if you have questions or you need resources or want to learn more about traumatic brain injury. Thank you so much. Aloha.